Society has become extremely toxic for men. Society has become extremely toxic for men. Women are beginning to discover themselves just how toxic society is for men. And let me make this clear, a lot of these women are the same ones who've been doing this to men, and now they're beginning to experience it for themselves. Watch it in the video to fully understand why women are now beginning to realize just how toxic society is for men and the implications it's going to have for society and the relationships between men and women going forward. And now let's just go ahead and jump right into the video.
One of my guy friends gave me permission to make a Hinge account for him because I was telling him how easy dating is with dating apps. And he was telling me that it's incredibly difficult. And I was like, Pete, you must be doing something wrong. And he gave me permission to create an account for him and just run the account. I've been a virtual boy for 3 days. And I've never felt this bad about myself. I feel like a freaking loser trying to get these girls to like me. And I'm starting to hate women because I'm like, when I say I mean Pete, because that's the account I'm using. Pete's about a 6. But I'm so desperate, I'm liking the 2s and the 3s, and even they won't like me back, Pete, which is a 6. So what level of delusion has entered women's heads? Like, what is going on? It is so difficult dating as a boy. I hate it. I'm on day 3 of being a boy, and I hate women, and I'm more depressed than ever.
Now, guys, I want you to see what ends up happening. When women begin living as men, they begin experiencing what men experience. This is just over a simple dating app. She has now started saying that she hates women. Okay? Just from a dating app. She doesn't have to live with the toxic way that men are treated in society. And let me make it very clear, I am not advocating for hating women, but I'm just pointing this out, that when women experience just a tiny amount of what men have experienced on a regular basis, this is how they respond. This is how they reflect. They basically turn on one another. You see, women don't care until it happens to them. Now consider this. I've said this already. If women ever went through what men are going through in society, they would crumble. They would crash. They could never handle it. The way that men are demonized in the UK right now, boys will basically be reported to the Department of Terrorism if they are even suspected of being susceptible to the manosphere, to extreme misogyny. Think about that very, very carefully. All right. Look at how society works for men, where basically a man will have his entire life taken away over anything and everything. All right. And then women go around saying strong and independent, when the reality is that they are under the authority of the state, and they act as agents of the state. Their job is to reallocate wealth and resources from men to the state, and they do this through the criminal court system, through civil court, family court, divorce court. It doesn't matter. All right? As long as they do this and everyone gets a cut. However, they are not in charge of the state. They do not rule over the state. The state, in reality, rules over them. They are given special privileges while men are given special punishments. However, those privileges can be taken away very easily. Do you know who also came to this conclusion? George Orwell, when he released 1984, back in 1949, 75 years ago. He wrote, "It was always the women, and above all the young ones, who were the most bigoted adherents of the party, the swallowers of slogans, the amateur spies." This is from the book 1984. He foresaw all of this long in advance, before we had computers like we have today, before all of it. He talked about the ministry of truth and how they would change information around. There was a comment on one of my videos that someone left, which was pretty interesting. And they basically talked about how history is being rewritten by women right now, where women are going around. For example, someone wrote something like, they have a daughter, or it's like a PhD and basically of like women's studies, And what she does is she basically goes around, spends all of her days going around and rewriting things to say that women, writing papers, submitting papers, and all of these things to basically say that women are the ones who invented most of the things around us, not men. I want you guys to think about that very carefully. It's an insane thing, an absolutely insane thing that we are now seeing in Western society. It was always the women, and above all, the young ones who were the most bigoted adherents of the party, the swallowers of slogans, the amateur spies, the nose and nosers out of unorthodoxy. He was not just a good novelist, all right? He saw where things were headed. He saw the hell on earth that we were heading into. It's a sick, sick, sad society. That's where we're at right now. We have been taken advantage of for ages. We have been used as men for ages. The entirety of dealing with the manosphere, to be very clear. Dealing with the manosphere, the purpose of the manosphere, they want to deal with the manosphere. They want to shut down the manosphere, not because of misogyny, because most men in the manosphere are not misogynists. They do not hate women. No, they want to shut down the manosphere because they don't want men to get strong. They want men to be weak, physically weak. They want you to be fat. They want you to be sick. They want you to be stupid. They want you just smart enough to keep society going, to pull the levers and do the menial jobs that they need to keep the society going, but not smart enough to use critical thinking to figure out how badly you're being screwed over. To figure out that we no longer have a country in the United States. We do not live under a democracy nor a republic. We're supposed to be a republic. No. Back in the 1800s, there was a document that was signed, and it changed us from it changed our country from a republic to a federal corporation. Most people do not understand how the government operates, how the United States actually operates. All of these cities, they operate as corporations. Corporations. And as a result, they can go bankrupt. Many of them have massive billions of dollars in debt. These cities can go bankrupt. The United States is a federal corporation. It can go bankrupt. The Federal Reserve is a private entity. Think about all of this very, very carefully. We were long sold out. We do not operate as a republic. Guys, think about the chief executive officer, the office of the presidency, the executive suite. This is not, guys, these people are just overseers. They're just administrators. All right. It's one big business. It's a big business. When it comes to the state, if a police officer violates your civil rights, most of the time, the lower courts will find that the police officer is in the right because he has qualified immunity. Okay? And as a result of that, it trumps your rights 100%. It trumps your rights 100%. Qualified immunity. The only time that you'll have to literally fight your way to the Supreme Court, and it can take forever to get there, and the Supreme Court can kick the case back to the lower courts because they really don't want to touch it. Because if it goes to the Supreme Court, then they're usually going to have to rule against it. What is qualified immunity for police, and why are their calls ended? So, qualified immunity. All right, Congress is kicking around ideas for reforming police departments. A key sticking point is the notion of qualified immunity, a legal doctrine that keeps police officers safe from civil lawsuits. Democrats want to end qualified immunity for police, but Republicans say the idea goes too far. The central friction is whether it is reasonable to ask police to enforce the law without protection from frivolous lawsuits. While the very protection may enable police to overreact and abuse people without the fear of being sued. Nearly every year for the last decade, the Supreme Court has taken up at least one case involving qualified immunity for police, and nearly always rules in favor of police. Justice Sonia Sotomayor and Clarence Thomas, on different ends of the spectrum, have each written about the dangers of qualified immunity. In a 2018 ruling, Sotomayor wrote that the immunity police that with immunity, police can delete first and think later, and it tells the public that palpably unreasonable conduct will go unpunished. Justice Thomas has said qualified immunity has no historical basis and was invented by judges. In 2017, Justice Thomas wrote about his growing concern over our qualified immunity jurisprudence. Reuters recently published a special report on this issue. Reuters looked at 252 cases from 2015 to 2019 where plaintiffs sought to abolish qualified immunity for police that they wanted to sue. In about half of those cases, the courts upheld the qualified immunity that protected the officers. Reuters found that since 2005, the courts have shown an increasing tendency to grant immunity in excessive force cases. This is crazy. So the two-part test to overcome immunity. Generally, when a plaintiff wants to remove qualified immunity and open a police officer to a civil lawsuit, the plaintiff must meet a two-part test. They must show evidence that a jury would be likely to find the officer's use of force would violate the Fourth Amendment, and then they must show that the officer should have known they were violating clearly established laws. This is very strange, guys. So it doesn't actually matter if a police officer violates your Fourth Amendment, your civil rights, or your all right. They have to actually know that they also violated it. This is a ridiculous concept. So it does. So that's why I said you do not have rights. You have privileges that can be taken away at any time. Because qualified immunity basically trumps your rights to pursue civil suits against these individuals, and if they do not know that they are violating your civil rights, for example, if they say they were not aware that they were violating your rights, then that's qualified immunity right there. Oh, I didn't know I was violating your freedom of speech. Oh, I didn't know that I was violating your right to an attorney or this or this. I didn't know any of these things. Basically, all they have to do is feign ignorance. So qualified immunity balances two important interests: the need to hold public officials accountable when they exercise power irresponsibly, and the need to shield officials from harassment, distraction, and liability when they perform their duties reasonably. Specifically, qualified immunity protects a government official from lawsuits alleging that the official violated a plaintiff's rights, only allowing suit where officials violated a clearly established statutory or constitutional right. When determining whether or not a right was clearly established, courts considered whether a hypothetical reasonable official would have known that the defendant's conduct violated the plaintiff's rights. Courts conducting the analysis applied the law that was in force at the time of the alleged violation, not the law in effect when the court considers the case. Qualified immunity is not immunity from having to pay money damages, but rather immunity from having to go through the cost of a trial at all. This is insane. Qualified immunity is not immunity from having to pay money damages, but rather immunity from having to go through the cost of a trial at all. Accordingly, courts must resolve qualified immunity issues as early in a case as possible, preferably before discovery. Qualified immunity only applies to suits against government officials as individuals, not suits against the government for damages caused by official actions. So basically, the individuals who do these things the liability will go to the state, and now you have to fight the state over this. And the state can basically pay out damages while keeping the individual who committed the act on file, so they can basically control alt delete someone, and they'll get away with it completely and even get promoted, and then the state will pay damages if the state is found guilty. That's insane. All right. Although qualified immunity frequently appears in cases involving police officers, it also applies to most other executive branch officials, while judges, prosecutors, legislators, and some other government officials do not receive qualified immunity. Most are protected by other immunity doctrines. This is crazy. Wow, this is absolutely insane. This is absolute, and guys, this is why I told you, you do not have rights. You have special, you have privileges that can be taken away at any time. George Carlin warned us entirely about the system. He warned us about the system. All right, our society is run by a bunch of crooks. It's run by a bunch of evil crooks that want nothing more to see us lose every right and freedom that we have, to own nothing and be happy about it. Because don't you dare say anything. Don't you dare complain about it, or else you're going to have a problem, or rather, they're going to have a problem with you. And guys, you know who's responsible for this? You know who's responsible for so much of this? The baby boomers. They are responsible for so much of this right now. And the craziest thing is that they're retiring. A lot of them are retiring now, and they have zero savings. They have no savings whatsoever, and they're going to put a massive burden on society. When you look at this article over here, millions of Americans are retiring with no savings. Study reveals about 90% of low-income U.S. workers over 50 have nothing stashed away for retirement. Yeah, guys, half of all baby boomers have no money in the bank. They have nothing. They have literally nothing set aside for retirement. They have no savings for retirement, nothing. And about 30% of them, of those who do actually have something, have less than $100,000. And with the average baby boomer spending $53,000 a year, they're not going to be able to make it. Okay? Guys, as we get older, we develop health issues. Many baby boomers have health issues. I've got them coming after me saying that we're not all, about to leave this world, and, we have power. It's like it's acting like that's like a tyrannical thing, and we can deal with you, or we're not all bad. We didn't do anything wrong. I worked hard, blah, blah. It's the same stuff, man. It's the same stuff. Our society is broken and fractured because the people who have had control of this country, and more so the control of the world for the last 50 or 60 years, almost 60 years, are still doing it and take no accountability for any of it. This is why society has become so toxic for men. This is why men are now saying that, hey, we don't even have a dog in the fight. We have no dog in the fight. We have nothing to do with this. We want out. And men are staying home. They're playing video games. They're watching TV. The money that they would spend going on dates, they're using that money to have a good time. All right? They're using that money for food and fun. And guys, I'm telling you right now, you're going to see the real estate economy. You're going to see the real estate market beginning to collapse, because most real estate is actually owned by the baby boomers. The average home is not supposed to cost two or two and a half times more than your annual yearly income. So, and when I say annual yearly income, I mean the average. A starter home is not supposed to cost more than the average annual yearly income, and the average is just over $40,000, right? So let's say 50,000, because women make less than men. The average man makes like around 50 something. The average woman makes around 36 to 40 something. So let's say $50,000 is the average annual income for a person. It's right around there. It might be a little less, little more, a little less. But it's right around there, right around 50,000. You're not supposed to be spending more than $125,000 for a property, for a starter home, anywhere in the US. Let's make that very clear. Let's make that for the most part. So for the average person, $125,000 is the maximum you should be spending on a property for a starter home. Okay, that's the honest to goodness truth. Many of these starter homes now, the average price is over $400,000. And now you have investors who are stepping in and say, yeah, listen, don't even think about purchasing a property before you're don't even think about purchasing a property if you're still, when you're if you're under 30 years old. And a lot of people are now moving over to these tiny homes where they are converting shipping containers into houses. Some of you are like, ha ha ha, I don't care. That's not real. You better not purchase one. And everyone's like, go to hell. Because that's what people are doing. Like, check this out right here. Grant Cardone says Americans under 30 should not even consider buying a home. Right? And here's why he's so against it. We're basically becoming a society of renters, just to make it clear. Anyone under 30 should not even consider buying a home at this time, Cardone wrote in a recent X post. He noted that the average home now costs $436,000. He didn't cite a source for this figure, but the median sale price of houses in the U.S. in the first quarter of 2024 was $420,800 per the U.S. Census. So he says you can rent for under $2,000 with no long-term commitment, no down payment, and keep your mobility, he wrote, concluding that buying a house is no longer the American dream. That being said, this doesn't negate real estate's income potential and diversifying and inflation hedging properties. And while the cost of home ownership can be substantial, there are now strategies to invest in real estate without purchasing a house yourself. And I mean, of course, they talk about crowdfunding and invest in a private real estate fund and ETFs. But the reality is that no young person should be getting involved, and no millennial, unless you have that kind of cash. And even then, you have to be careful because, guys, boomers own 80% of the stock market. They own the vast majority of the real estate market. They pretty much own everything. Everything. And as they begin retiring, they're going to begin pulling all of their money out of their 401ks, out of their pension plans that are invested in the real estate that are invested in the stock market. So that's going to cause the stock market to take a nosedive. Okay, the properties that they're holding on to longer now. They're not letting these homes go. They're not moving out of these homes. And if they do move, they're moving into houses that are similar in size. Okay, and the properties are only getting more and more expensive. Only an idiot would think of purchasing one of these properties and spending the next 20, 30 years trying to pay it off. That's a load of stupidity. And I know there are people who are going to listen to my channel and listen to my rant and say that I'm wrong. That's a load of stupidity. When my father purchased his house for $140,000 back in around just little less than 30 years ago, that property now costs over $1 million. It's now valued over $1 million. How stupid does anyone have to be to not realize this is a bad investment? The boomers are ripping us off. When they got these offers for 30-year mortgages, the reality is that was just another means of them letting them suck the equity out of these properties and steal from future generations. They were basically able to just get free money by constantly refinancing the properties and concluding that they can just stay in the properties for the rest of their lives, keep on refinancing as inflation got worse, and they could care less about what happened to future generations, and then they would blame everyone around them. And here's the thing, despite all of their crooked ways, half of them have no retirement savings, and then 30% of those who do have something have less than $100,000. They're the fastest growing. They're the fastest growing the fastest growing hopeless population in the U.S. They're becoming homeless faster than anyone else, and that number is only going to explode in the coming years. I mean, guys, take everything into consideration. There's not going to be any real bailout. The average Social Security check is something like $1,800. Even if you boosted that up to $2,000 a month, with the cost of living that we're experiencing right now, many would be living still near poverty. Most of them are living near poverty. Social Security is not going to rescue them. What do they think, guys? What do they think is going to happen? They're going to fight. They're going to vote for a universal high income. and just print more money. If you just, we see exactly what happens. What happened when we just printed money out of thin air and handed out free money to everyone after the events of 2020. It helped contribute to hyperinflation, utilizing quantitative easing. Where the hell did that term come from? I'll tell you one thing: it was popularized by the boomers. Quantitative easing is nothing more than printing money. It's nothing more than printing money and then recirculating it into the economy, this in hopes of stimulating growth and preventing a further a further downturn. That's what quantitative easing is. These people think they're so damn brilliant. They're not, right? What they don't comprehend is when you start printing money out of thin air, eventually it starts to catch up to you. It results in hyperinflation. We learned this when we were growing up. Gen Xers learned this when we were growing up about countries that printed money out of thin air, and then people were walking around with bags of money eventually, to pay their bills. That's what happened in Venezuela also, when Venezuela instituted price caps, not even barely, was it like a decade ago or less? They instituted price caps where they basically capped the price of what they could charge in the countries for goods and services, price limits for everything, food, products, whatever. And companies basically said, okay, well, we're just going to leave and stop selling our products here. And people had to turn to the black market for a while just to survive. And then once they removed the price caps, it was hyperinflation, and the bolivar just kept on going down to nothing. And now you have Maduro over there, who looks a lot like Kim Jong, and that's his boy, and people are suffering. And Venezuela was once I forget if it was the second or it was the third wealthiest country in the Western Hemisphere, and now look at the state that it's in. And a lot of this is the result because men have been pushed out of society. Guys, where this is all leading is ultimately men are just going to continue walking away, and society is going to continue going downhill. Men are guys, and the more they try to punish men for existing, the more men basically will just let it all collapse while they drink a beer and watch it burn. That is where we're going, and women are going to feel the brunt of this because men have to succeed if they want to survive. Women have never gone through that before. Women have always had the luxury of being able to turn to the state or find a man to bail them out. The state is broke. The state cannot bail them out. The state cannot afford to subsidize them anymore. Okay? Because the state cannot even pay its interest on all of the money that it owes, the $35 trillion in debt that it owes. Okay? So how is it going to go pay a UBI? That's just hyperinflation in of itself. Look at everything that the feds have just done, trying to dry up the liquidity in the markets in hopes that it would help to control runaway inflation. And it literally did not. It completely failed. And they're like, oh my gosh, inflation is now down to 2.9%. Consumers can finally breathe a little bit easier. Guys, inflation going down from 3.1% and 3% to 2.9% doesn't mean that the price of things that we're going to experience deflation where the prices goes down. That means that the prices of food and everything else around us are just going up slightly. They're going up slightly slower. So everything is just going to keep on skyrocketing. This is runaway inflation. It's crazy. And then they're gaslighting us. Almost 1 million jobs just literally vanished recently in the United States, by the way. Almost 100 million jobs. So most of those jobs were complete and utter fluff. And we're supposed to pretend like everything is okay. This is one of the reasons why I keep on warning you guys that you have to understand how to create value for others. All right? Guys, this channel that I run, this is a 6-figure business. Just this channel alone. Just my YouTube business. I have 5 channels on YouTube, and between this channel and my MWA channel, this channel alone by itself, not even without the MWA channel. The MWA channel generates an entire income on its own, separate income. But just this YouTube channel alone is a 6-figure business that I built in 1 year. 1 year of coming back, because I've been on YouTube for 10 years. I was sick for 4 years, and I got back on YouTube. This is a 6-figure business. All right. And you have to know how you're going to have to be able to do this, because because everything is going to hell. You're going to have to, and guys, let me explain. I don't use this channel is not my main business. I use this channel as a means of growing my core business, of growing my main business. Okay? Like, you have to wake up and realize, you guys, many of you are just laughing and think it's a game. A lot of you, once you lose your job, you're done. And you'll be searching for remote work and trying to build and try to figure out stuff, and you won't have any money. Right now is when you should be learning skills, various skills. It's so important. It's very, very important, guys. And you have to always diversify. Always diversify. Guys, one of the best places you can actually check out is actually over on my on in the Angry Guy Clubhouse on Substacks. You can dive into podcasts, Gen X stories, and more. You also get a copy of my free digital nomad blueprint. The link to the Angry Guy Clubhouse is in the description of the video. We have guides over there that also teach you how to build wealth. It's basically like a little manosphere nugget that I've created for us. It's really crazy. We actually have some women following us over there. It's a really nice community. You should go and check it out. Absolutely love it. And it's so less toxic. There's already some of you guys that are messaging me over there. We have a chat over there. So you can go over there, you can talk to me, you can join the chat. We have threads. Oh my gosh, it's so much nicer. So much nicer. So go and check that out. I write articles every single day. Yeah, Angry Guy writes articles. So I write articles, blog posts, but they're really articles every day. And I try to do it every day, sometimes multiple times a day. And you also get notified via your inbox, not just on the site. You also get emails whenever I drop something new. So you don't have to say, oh, where's my, I didn't get a notification. It is so awesome. It is absolutely awesome. You can go over to Substacks, go over to the Angry Guy Clubhouse. It's hosted on Substacks. Check that out. It is so, guys. We got exclusive. We got videos over there. We got podcasts over there. We've got oh my goodness. And for example, any videos that are just can't be on YouTube, that I can't put on YouTube anymore, or something happens, I just take those videos and I put them on Substacks. And you can go over there, and the staff is wonderful. They don't bother us. That's the Angry Guy Clubhouse is incredible. I love it so much. So yeah, it's linked in the description. You can go and check that out. And you should also see something pop up on the screen of a Clubhouse. You can click on that to get over there as well. But yeah, guys, what do you think regarding all of this? Society has become extremely toxic for men. Let me know your thoughts. We'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA, men walking away. And cheers.